said.
And
I press the button and magically we should be live. So welcome everyone to Blender Cloud Live once again from the Blender Animation Studio here in Amsterdam. And today I have two special guests that I happened to grab from their seats. They were working here in the studio, they're working on Spring. So welcome Julian.
yeah, hi.
Hi, I know. Who are you? You should say your name actually.
Yeah, my name is Julian Kasper, and I'm working here for like half a year almost already.
Wow.
Yeah, as a 3D artist, mainly working on the characters.
Character development stuff.
Yeah.
Awesome. And you, half a year too?
No, more than a decade.
Yeah, I was gonna say decade.
Yeah.
No, it's like actually a full more than a decade.
I've been working here for since we moved into this building, so more than 10 years ago.
And you
I am
will be
that-
working until we move, and we move to a new place. Actually, Ton mentioned on Twitter that we're moving, so I guess we're moving. But the studio. The Spring team is gonna stay here for a bit, and with the Code Quest gonna begin there. So actually, you're gonna be the first and the last.
I'm gonna. Oh,
It's
yeah.
like
I'm
the
that
captain,
old, yeah, really.
because even Ton is leaving to the other building before, so you're gonna be like the captain of a ship.
I
You know,
wasn't
like,
actually the first. Bassam Kordali, he was the first,
he
but
was first.
yeah, well, maybe we can get him here just for that period.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's gonna hurry up though because it's gonna happen soon. But today we have Spring to talk about. This latest and greatest open movie project that happens here is what can you say about Spring? That's your movie.
Yeah. Spring is well,
We already talked about, so
Yeah.
just a brief.
So it's kind of a little fairy tale movie with no dialogue, and it's about this girl and her little dog, and they're shepherds in the mountains, and they take care of. I don't want to spoil too much. So they take care of a certain.
Sorry.
They take care of a certain flock of very interesting looking sheep.
Yeah.
Which are not really sheep, they're these big monster thingies that are in the clouds, which is really like my passion. I like monsters and stuff. But the story is really, it's very simple, straightforward, kind of a bit more thoughtful, but friendly to all ages. It should appeal to all ages, so there's no violence, nothing in it.
Nice.
There's no dialogue, which makes it language independent. So hopefully it should be very appealing and
To everybody, to
yeah.
everyone. Yeah.
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 And
Sure.
yeah, it's kind of this, like I'm a visual guy, so this is the first film I'm actually directing myself, kind of, and I tend to just approach things from a visual point of view. So that's how I think about this movie as well. It's like these series of images, this grand environment and all that kind of stuff, and there happen to be characters in it, and there's a story, but kind of the environment and the feeling that you get from the emotion that you get from the images, that's what comes first for me.
Yeah. I can't wait because from the drawings that you like, from the storyboards at first, and then when you did some layout to help the guys, like it's completely different. So I can't even imagine how is it going to be in the end, like what you have in your head and how to put it into final renders.
Yeah.
Wow.
It'll be different.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow. So how do you work together? Because you said you're working first at the beginning. You were working on characters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I pretty much started working on Spring originally. Did some sculpting and just a bit of like, interpreting the concept arts, getting it into 3D, which was also interesting because David Revoix, need to pronounce it French.
Yeah, concept artist. Right?
Yeah, the concept artist for this project. He also has a bit more of an anime style in his concept work, and that was a bit interesting to get into 3D. There were some changes we had to make along the way, and also some things that we only realized after some time, also after doing some tests with the animation. And we're still making changes, some small, mostly small, trying to get it into the rig as fast as possible.
Yeah, the once you work in a two-dimensional medium to to design something, which is great because it's very fast, it's very straightforward, but then you're moving into the third dimension
Yeah.
that we are using to make movies. It's really hard because in 2D you can cheat things and certain angles work better, and right now we're having this problem that her face tended to look really flat in the front. And like we noticed when we were turning the character around in shots that her face looked really flat. So we what worked beautifully in a few renders and sculpts, and what works really amazing in the
2D
concept
drawings,
art, just suddenly becomes this problem that we haven't thought of before, and that's just part of the process. So we are currently abusing Juan Pablo Bausa, our rigger, to also do some slight character tweaks that we can get into, like all the tweaks we can get into the film.
With the rig.
Yeah,
itself.
with the rig, yeah. And once you start rigging a character, it's like you can't just tweak the mesh, because like all these controls are going to be out of place and all the shape keys are going to be wrong.
Yeah, I tried.
Yeah.
I tried making some little changes with the shape key or something. Nothing huge, but I just immediately broke it.
Yeah. Well, BlendRig is like it's a creature on its own.
Yeah, it's a big, well-oiled machine, but once you move something out of place...
exactly. You need the technician there.
Yes.
Wow, awesome. So the characters themselves, what made you make it like this way? You wanted to have a girl and a dog.
Well, in the very first idea, it wasn't a girl. It was just like this vague character. So I didn't have any preference.
Oh yeah.
And like I really enjoy David's art. Pepper and Carrot are just really amazing, and he's just like with these female characters that show like a certain level of strength. He's just amazing with that kind of stuff. So that's what made me say, okay, this is going to be really cool if there's if it's a little girl and her pet dog, which, I mean, it's a bit of a cliche, to be honest, but I think it's like, it's this tiny little person that's against these big monstery creatures, which, I mean, they're not necessarily evil or anything. They're just, they're just there. They just exist, and they have their attitude and stuff. But you got to deal with them at least. You have to round them up and stuff like that. So just the contrast was very appealing to me. And I think that's what's gonna make this movie really characteristic.
Wow. Regarding the dog, there were any like you with Spring, you had the flat face issue. What about the dog? Have you found any? What are the challenges, both in the design and the making it? Like who modeled this one?
It was me. Yeah.
Okay.
He's our master sculptor and modeler. So
awesome.
Yeah, I guess the first big issue was, okay, he has a lot of fur.
Yeah.
And just wrapping your head around it, how it's supposed to look, and also how the underlying body is supposed to look. Without having the actual fur there, you're trying to make some substitute meshes on top to get a sense of the actual volume, how it's supposed to look. But in the end, it's still turned out as pretty different. I mean, one of the big changes of the dog is with the eyes. At first, we always, when we saw the concept art, we always thought, okay, his eyes are going to be mostly covered. But, but steadily we kept changing it, like showing a bit more of the eyes, and now the eyes are pretty much always visible. Just because you're losing.
They're still covered a bit, but
you just need that level of expression.
Test render there.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Now you can completely see it.
And we might still experiment with that as like we get more animation. Like last week, Pablo Forni, he made the first real test shot with the dog. So I got to render that, and that was really interesting. I actually didn't finish it, so I have to go back to that. But yeah, it showed us that like right now the dog is too dark, and he's supposed to be a black dog, but then he disappears completely if he's in a dark environment like the frozen forest that we have.
Yeah.
So we have to do some tricks there.
Make it orange or
Something, yeah, and just make sure that his expressions read. That's gonna be the really, really tough challenge. And I think like once we get more into the animation cycles, we can we actually create shots, because right now we're just making layouts and we're kind of just eyeballing everything roughly. And then once we get into the actual production, which means that we set up animation files and the animators actually take the rigs and take the characters in and just start from a completely blank slate. There we can, like once we have something like that, we can start doing test lighting and test rendering and that kind of stuff.
of everything.
Then we can see how it actually feels like.
Wow. So yeah, if you make it black, it gets lost in the environment. If you make it white, it gets lost in the snow.
Yeah.
You can't.
Find the sweet spot.
Yeah.
I mean,
Make it blue? No.
we had the same problem with Frank the sheep in Cosmos Laundromat.
Yeah.
He also has this dark hair everywhere, and he was supposed to be dark. And then remember, like you had all the shots where he was standing against the sun.
Against the sun in the back. So how do you even like? And the hair in Blender wasn't the best to like make a silhouette. You had to like really burn it, but then the render time will go up insanely. Yeah, fun memories.
Yeah.
Awesome. So there is only 2 characters, or there is even more here? Do we want to show?
I mean, technically
Detail.
there's a third.
There is a third
yeah,
character.
yeah.
So yeah, what you mentioned this without giving away too much. How do you even think of something like this?
Yeah, I can also talk about.
Yes, yeah.
I think of the alpha like pretty much as the most interesting character to
Of all?
develop.
Let's go back. So you were saying alpha. So
Yeah, it is called the alpha.
So that okay. So I'll just like explain it a little bit for people who don't know it, because I mean we like I don't know who you guys are. Maybe you're following this production, maybe not. So the girl and the dog, they care for these creatures, and the creatures are in a big herd, and they're in a frozen valley of sorts. They are really, really, really tall creatures, so they have these big bodies that have these spikes on them, and they have really, really long legs that reach to the ground. So the main guy she's interfacing, well, she's kind of communicating with in the story, like there's this standoff, so to speak. It's not really a standoff, but just to simplify it, that's the alpha of the herd. That's what we call the alpha creature. Mm-hmm. The creatures themselves don't have a name yet. I still have to come up with some.
Betas.
Yeah. So, but yeah, there are these kind of these ancient, but kind of a bit stupid, not really stupid, but they're more like with the attitude of sheep or cows. So they're they just follow the lead basically.
Yeah, exactly.
And what she has to do is she has to convince the alpha to hand over the baton. I don't know. To her to make them follow her, and that's the main thing in the story, and that's our third character. So that's the alpha. So long story short.
Yeah, the original concepts I thought were very intriguing. They were just these gigantic creatures, very mysterious. They were just pure mystery, and very like a bit Leviathan or Lovecraftian looking. But we for a long time we never really pinpointed an exact design.
Yeah.
And I always think when I'm working on something, I tend to make things more cute. And Andy is pretty much the complete opposite.
Against no cute, maximum impact.
And us both working on this design was very interesting, finding the middle ground to have something that is interesting and appealing, but also still mysterious.
Yeah.
And I was going to sculpt like some designs, and Andy was coming up with the idea. Hey, how about moths?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Because they're
ew. Yes.
not you, because like it depends. Because a while ago there was this thing on the internet that someone posted a picture of a plush toy of a poodle moth, and then people thought that was the actual moth, and it was like super cute and cuddly. But then if you look for references on poodle moths, they're like the tiniest, cutest little things.
Yeah,
They're so
that's true.
fluffy and stuff, and that's what like. I mean, I tend to make things really creepy and abstract, kind of dark with lots of things.
Come
But-
on.
Well, to be fair, like yeah, that's kind of my thing, and that's easy for me, easier
Yeah.
than making something cute. So I thought it was really interesting to just hand it off to Julian, and like try to find the balance between it.
Balance, yeah.
And then David did some paint overs, and we just honed in on this idea that is this really old, wise creature that you can't really see because it's going to be covered in these swirls of clouds, in this thick mist, and it'll look amazing and glowy and mysterious still. But yeah, to find what is hiding in that fog, we have to go through the whole process of designing the character. So
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I pretty much at the beginning I just made it into a giant bug, very cute little ball.
Yeah.
And now it's more this gigantic crab moth creature.
Yeah.
And I think one big design aspect that's going to be tricky in the animation is how is it going to move around, and how is it going to prone down
Yeah,
to
go down and yeah.
and with these gigantic legs that are so high that you can't even see the creature when they are standing. They're just lost in the fog. And in the
Yes.
mist. How do they sit? How do they go down?
Like this.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I remembered from a year ago or something. I did a little speed sculpt of a spider crab, and they have these joints. And I was just thinking about it.
Yeah, doing the
Why-
UV unwrapping for this must be
Yeah.
fun. Right?
I did it.
Wow.
It was fun. Yeah.
Fine, yes,
Fine.
to say the least.
Yeah.
Wow. So you mentioned environment. Where
Yeah.
what can you say?
Mhm.
Because you've also been working on environment
Mm.
based on
So
where is it?
yeah. So this the environment for this story comes deep from my heart, and that's
Can I Google Andy's heart here?
please not. No, but I was born. Well, no, wasn't born, but I was raised next to the Swiss Alps. So and we would do trips to the Alps and all these hiking trips, and I was like in my youth I was very amazed by the grand scale of these mountains. Like you're there and you just feel tiny because you're walking next to a cliff that's like 100 meters high and you can't see the top, and if a rock would come down on you, it would just crush you.
Yeah.
And
Nice thoughts you had. Yes.
but that sort of feeling that as a human being you're just
So
you're just,
fragile.
yeah, you're just a small speck in the landscape, and it's really that sort of feeling that I hope that it carries into the film. So the environment is kind of loosely inspired by the Alps as a mountainous region, but generally by mountains all around the
In
world.
general, yeah.
Yeah. So it's not gonna fully play on a mountain. It will be it's. Oh no, the hut.
No.
Yeah.
We cut the hut.
Yeah.
A
So
while
don't
ago.
don't,
It's
don't get
gone.
too attached to it. Yeah.
Too late.
So, but yeah. So the place we're going to visit is this dark and frozen valley in this region of the mountains, and this valley is covered in a thick layer of clouds, and incidentally this movie is called Spring, so we will observe the process as the girl Spring and her dog bring summer back to that frozen valley.
Ah, nice.
Without spoiling it.
Without
but
spoiling
yeah,
it?
I hope. So that's the idea.
Yeah.
So the main place is this dark frozen valley. It looks lifeless. It's cold. It's not without beauty though. and it's the dwelling place of those big creatures, and she has to find a way to
to bring it
to bring them to round them up, to bring them out of the valley.
That's
That's as
nice.
far as I want to take
Without
it.
violence. Right? Because we said it's open movie, it's not gonna have violence. That's, wow. I mean, look at the hat. I'm gonna miss this place.
Yeah. So what happened a week ago? Well, not 4 weeks ago, roughly, is that we were working on a film on the layout, and it was 8.5 minutes, and it was on the verge of going into 9 minutes, and it was really like we said in that time frame we can't do it, and then to make sure that the story actually carries, it has to be even longer. So I was constantly saying, okay, it might be 9 minutes now, but to make this work, to make it like feel like a film, it's going to be 12 minutes or so.
Yeah.
And that we really can't do. And then we were running into all these kind of problems with character motivation and stuff, that we need to just add more information to make that work, and add more information here. So in the end, we just decided to cut the story down to the manageable point, to what worked already, and what was actually fairly close to the original idea. So we have this 6.5 minute core right now that is just the bare bones of the action.
Yeah.
But that has everything, and with that we really can spend a lot of time to make sure that the environment is beautiful, that you fall in love with the characters, that the animation is going to be amazing, and all the things that we build for us, they're going to be like mind-blowing.
Mind-blowing.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, this is a render test, right? That you did
Mm-hmm.
with assets from you're also Julian. How fun is it to make rocks?
Well, I did it for a few weeks now, so
Yeah. Does it
I mean,
rock? No.
It works. I mean,
works.
there's still a bit of tweaking to be done,
Yeah.
but I hope that the rocks are pretty much done until I get to the next set of rocks for the riverbed.
It is amazing.
But yeah, these are the first rocks from Andy.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
made much more. I think there's like another folder with like all the rock pictures.
No, it's in the same folder.
Is it like
It's
a folder,
further down.
But it deserves a folder dedicated to rocks.
Mm.
Yeah. Soon.
Yeah.
Yeah, I made a bunch of different rocks, small, medium, and large boulders,
Yeah.
and did some material testing as well, with a bit of more snowy gray rocks, and then a bit more overgrown. And yeah, these will likely be the rocks that we'll use the most, just to scatter around the environments.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're also going to take these rocks and put them up online.
Oh, yeah,
right?
sure.
We're
Yeah.
gonna make a nice pack so you can add your own rocks, and yeah, it saves you a couple of weeks of work.
Yeah, hopefully.
More. Yes. That's awesome. So they're scouted, they're retopoed, everything.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. And now I heard you're also given the task of making trees, right?
Yeah, not much as I think the trees are not even
Are
on
not
there
there yet.
But I sculpted the icicles.
That's also very fun.
Yeah, so these are the basic set of icicles that will scatter around the
Yeah.
forest and the valley, the frozen part, and yeah, I'm currently finishing them, and also working on the trees. There are going to be a lot of trees down in the forest, of course.
Wow.
Yeah, and
So-
yeah, the asset library will be huge. There's a lot to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
also-
hope I can help.
Yeah, just working on it by myself right now.
Well, you did it in previous projects, so I think you had your
Yeah.
share.
Yeah.
Yeah. But also then you have to build those sets, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. How many sets are we talking about, more or less?
Right now we have about 3 to 4, I think, really.
4
5.
sets.
5.
5 sets.
Yeah. So sets. I mean, what is a set?
A set is a location
Yeah.
where more or less doesn't really change that much. Like where you have to make a set. Remember, like for previous project we had, well, the agent was sort of special because everything happens mainly in the barbershop.
Yeah,
We
it was
also had
outside the barbershop.
outside, interior,
Interior
and downstairs.
Downstairs, yeah. And
How's this?
yeah, right now we have the main set is inside the valley, which is divided into two parts basically. There's a chase scene that happens that will happen on a larger stretch of set. So it's this kind of dried out riverbed. And then there will be up the mountain, on the side of a mountain, and on top of the mountain. So roughly 4 sets. So
4
yeah,
sets.
yeah,
Okay.
we try to. I mean, obviously those might be extended a bit, and things might take place in different parts of the set. But we'll see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Is there any, based on your experience on previous projects, is there anything you're looking forward to work on here? Like besides 2.8, I know you're dying to try Blender 2.8.
Oh, I'm trying it. I have
Really?
I have it on my desktop. I open it every once in a while.
Yeah?
Yeah, I look at all the Eevee stuff and everything. It looks great.
Yeah. People sometimes ask, why not making it in Eevee? Why not Spring in Eevee?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Wasn't
why
that
not?
That was the question last live stream as well. Okay.
Yes.
So I would love to do it in Eevee because it's fast. It's gonna be so cool also to try out all these things and make sure that we help you guys develop it.
But.
Yeah. Here comes the big but. So I was working on Big Bug Bunny a long
11
time
years
ago.
ago?
Yeah, a long time ago, and we had all these problems with shadow buffers. So whenever we had to light something, we had to use Blender Internal, and Blender Internal relies on shadow buffer lamps. We could have used ray tracing, but it didn't work that well, or it wasn't supported really, or it was really slow. I mean, yeah, and so we had to work on shadow buffers. So for every single shots, I had to light the whole thing, but also go into each individual lamp and make sure that the grid of 1024 pixels up to 4K pixels aligns properly with the hairs. Because what would happen if you don't align it properly is that all the hair
Strands.
all the hair strands would throw shadows on the other hair strands, and then it would start jittering because the shadow map is not high resolution enough. You don't get that problem in Cycles, of course, because everything is sample based.
Yeah.
But in a thing like Eevee, it's suddenly based on shadow buffers again. Of course, there's contact shadows and that kind of stuff. So it's just like working in Eevee will be really fast to get the renders back, but to optimize it so it looks without flaw, that's gonna take a significant amount of time, and I think that's like you see it in all the demos, like in the Atom demos, and in
it's never good enough.
There's always these kind of small mistakes, and you take them for granted because it's real time, but yeah, as long as these small mistakes are there, I think it's not ready yet.
No.
So if there's we'll have hair, but will it be perfectly anti-aliased hair? Will the self-shadowing work really well?
No.
Will the ambient occlusion, when something is floating in the background, will it's properly separate between the background and the foreground?
Oh, wow, and if it has a transparent texture, I mean, there's so many.
Don't get me wrong, I absolutely love Eevee, and it's really great, and I hope we can use it for animation, everything, to make sure that we get the look as close as possible to the rendered thing. But
yeah, it's not about Eevee, it's about the technology nowadays. I see it's still not there. If you would then why not Pixar is making Coco in Presto, right? Whatever render they have. It's if you want to push to the next level, the graphics, you gotta use the latest and greatest, and 20-hour render frames, the render time per frame.
I mean,
or not.
If there was I don't know.
Yeah, more or less.
If
so much volume.
If there was a way to push Eevee on the insanely high quality setting, where you don't get those mistakes anymore, maybe it renders a frame in 16K, and it will still take who cares if it takes 10 minutes a frame? It's still less than Cycles, which will take
No, but even then, Eevee is a render real-time engine. It's focused on real-time and speed, and looking good. We
Yeah.
can make that in.
But I don't
10
want to
seconds.
rule it out completely.
No, of
Like,
course.
Yeah.
And if you use
What?
Principal Shader, it's gonna be fairly close
Yeah.
when you preview and when you.
I absolutely love the hair rendering in Eevee. Like when I was doing all the hair
yeah.
the hair grooming for Spring and the dog, I was using 2.79 and it's unbelievable how bad the
How
shading
bad
is.
it
I
is,
can't
yeah.
stress it enough because it's like of course it's because there's a limitation in how the way that OpenGL is used, of course, but that limitation is gone in Eevee basically. So it's much more nice. You can see what you're actually grooming. It's not this dark blob of nothingness. So it's just so cool to use. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. This demo is really old even, but it shows how, like, you can see the volume versus there is volume.
Yeah.
So
it's,
yeah,
it's
something-
actually usable.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's only one part of all the great things that are coming. So so that's it for characters, development, props, everything. What is we're gonna answer some questions now. So if you wanna, there are already some of them. So if you wanna ask anything, do it now. So I'm gonna ask a question to them first, and then we move to the Q&A and we wrap this up. So, question. What is like the thing you're looking as an artist, right? Because you are as a director, you're probably like, what are you looking forward to? Yeah, finish it, or like being able to tell the story or work in the sound or something. But just as a as a visual artist, like a render artist. For example, what is the thing you're looking forward the most to work on? Is there anything that you're like you're like, I can't wait to like, I don't know, do lighting or do a character or.
I mean, the asset library right now is pretty fun.
Is
I mean,
it? Like, even though you have to work 2 weeks in rocks and.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I have usually the most fun in modeling and texturing and also the materials, which I for a while still needed to wrap my head around because I usually didn't make the materials in Cycles. I used other software. But yeah, it's fun getting to know this stuff and experimenting.
Yeah.
And I always also like write down all my feedback on maybe there's like extra settings that we can implement into this stuff. I try to collect as much feedback as possible that I can give, and it's fun.
Yeah, so maybe after having all of these assets, maybe even building it is also fun, right?
Yeah,
because you just put them into
I
use.
never really worked a lot in environments, so I got a bit of a taste in that with the waterfall area, and that will be interesting to finally get into. Yeah,
and a side question actually, now that you mentioned, like you're used to work with Blender among other software.
Yeah.
In the Blender studio, we only work with open source. So yes, so you are chained to Blender and fellow open source software such as Krita or GIMP or Paint, Inkscape. There is plenty. Is there anything that you miss the most? How is it for you working? How did you adapt to working, like in this case, for example, doing everything with Blender, Cycles, the shading and everything?
I mean, there are small features that I'm always missing from other programs, and I used to experiment a lot, just jumping from software to software just to try things out.
Yeah.
And it's not too hard because Blender was always my go-to software, the main thing I always worked with. But just before I came here, I started really getting into Substance Painter and Quixel, and just making materials on a layer basis is very different from a node system. Each one has its own pros and cons, so it's mainly just different.
It's a different way of working.
I needed to change my mindset on that, but it is very, very fun to experiment with nodes.
Yeah.
And there are certain things that at first I just tried to make everything similar to like a layer-based system, which is it just gets blown out of proportion. I have these huge node systems that are just not efficient.
because you have probably like way too many, like you're building
Yeah.
each layer individually, so maybe
Yeah,
you
yeah.
have repeated steps or
Mm.
wow. Well, that's very interesting to know.
Mhm.
I didn't.
Yeah, and I mean also, I worked with ZBrush, of course, for sculpting,
Yeah.
and there are still features that I really would like to see in Blender, and I've written them all down. I'm just waiting for someone to work on it. But also just small things like little brush settings that it's not too far off, and I can really see this getting implemented sometime. Not too far in the future.
Yeah, once the code quest is
Yeah,
over and all
It's
those,
over.
all
Everyone
those
has time
developers
again.
will be like without job. Or,
They know about these features. I keep bugging them.
Yeah.
yeah.
Wow. Well, you're in the right place to ask for features. That's great.
amazing.
On the other hand, the code quest is coming where focus is mainly on getting 2.8 to beta, like however it is. So everything that you cannot do right now in Blender 2.8 should be possible.
Mm.
But maybe you can squeeze some,
Yeah.
brave someone there. You know? What about you? What is something as an artist, like because you've been doing everything for all the open movies until now. Is there part of the process that you're looking forward to the most?
I like doing the rendering and the shot building, and for some reason I like doing the stupid work of turning a layout file into a clean animation file. To a certain extent, I
No
like
way.
that. Yeah, it's like cleaning up all this. Can I say it? No.
Yeah.
Cleaning up all the
trash.
all the trash from the file, making sure that the file is usable.
Yeah.
Naming everything, but that's okay. Like for a certain amount of hours during the day. But what I really like doing is the texturing. So I started working a little bit on the shading and texturing of the alpha and the hair grooming, and I'll continue doing that in the next couple of months. And then this movie is going to feature a lot of clouds and smoke simulation.
All the nightmares.
So I guess I'll be doing that.
Yeah. Are you looking forward to playing with like after making tornadoes and?
How hard can it be?
Yeah, exactly.
How hard
Like,
can it be? Yeah, it's fine. It's fine.
it's like a static tornado. You don't even have to move it now.
Yeah. No, it'll be a challenge in itself. But I'm actually looking forward to that part. But I really like cheating things, like making something look amazing just by cheating stuff. In the past weeks, I've talked to Sergey, and he made this patch for rendering volumes, for rendering normal passes for volumes, for example. So we can render out a volumetric thing and then just put it on a plane with the normal textures and kind of warp the normals of that plane so it works under different lighting conditions, that kind of stuff. So I'm really interested in trying out to see if we can get shots really dense and beautiful with all the detail that you want in smoke simulation and that kind of stuff.
Wow.
I'm really looking forward to that.
Yeah.
And then everything. I'm enjoying everything, even though I'm cursing and everything. It's so much fun.
It's always part of the process.
You feel the pain during the thing, but afterwards, you feel how
it's so worth it.
It's all worth it. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Well, I myself, I'm not working on the project at the moment, but I hope to jump in at some point when after the quest, I guess, if there is need for an extra artist.
We need a lighting guy. Please come to us. We have cookies.
And actually, and asking that question to myself, that is what I'm looking forward the most. The setting the mood for a shot, like so mysterious, and the clouds, and there's this little girl with a dog in such immense environment. I don't know, it feels very, and the mountains. That's I didn't grow up by the mountains, but I close to the mountains, so
come on,
it's
the mountains
always
in Patagonia are just mind blowing.
Yeah, well, they're more pointy. They're newer.
Yeah,
like, they're a few million years.
They're the most dramatic, cartoony things. Yeah, great.
But I don't know. It's just I think it's gonna be quite the sight to have. I can't really wait for that. And as a, I'm also curious about the music, like outside of the
Yeah.
artistic part. Like what I like to do is just how the, I don't know, the wind and the I don't know, mountain
the
sounds.
atmosphere. Yeah, it's gonna be this symphony almost.
Yeah,
So,
amazing. So really
be
looking
great.
forward to that.
Me too. It'll be great.
Yes.
It'll be great.
All right, let's ask you what you want to know. So let's go through some of the questions. Or are all of the props on the cloud after finishing it? Yes.
Yeah.
Everything that, like the whole movie, like the entire thing, including
Everything.
all the blend files, every
Single
little
shot.
thing,
Yeah.
every shot is gonna be on the cloud. So you're gonna be able to open a shot, double click to open F12, and you will render the exact same thing.
It'll take a long time, but
It will take forever, but you will be able to do it. Just
Yeah.
like in any other open movie before, all of them, they're available on Blender Cloud.
Yeah, and as soon as we get something done, I mean, the only reason why we haven't put the rocks there is because we don't want to give just like unusable stuff that we might find mistakes in later. So we just
Yeah.
want to make sure that it works and you can use it. So that's the only reason. But there's nothing stopping us from just putting stuff while we're working,
Yeah.
which was
Mhm.
also the idea during the past projects like the Asian and Caminandes and
Yeah, sure, even as we are making it. I mean, we did it with a few parts, even like the city part of the agent is there like on a very early stage. But I think it's also so fun. But on the other hand, we should promote more of the final models that you can get. So that way you can actually make use of them and they're optimized and they're ready to be used, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So what is the forecast for toon shading NPR based work in 2.8? It's not planned yet, but it's there. People know there where these comments goes in every live stream, on every blog post in the code.blender.org. There is a mention on NPR. Developers are aware of that. It's just missing someone to code the toon shader. Basically, it's just it will come. It will come. We're working on optimizations and other stuff first, but it will come. Stay tuned. Can you guys talk a little about the particle hair system in 2.8? Well,
It'll be a new and awesome, right?
I'm afraid not.
Ah.
So what happens in Blender, like right now, the hair in Blender 2.79 has come to, yeah,
Is rotting in its grave, basically.
Yes,
People are
exactly.
still reviving it. It's still there, and it just wants to go.
yeah. It just wants, when it just wants to give up, it retire, but it can't. Well, the same will happen in 2.8 at the beginning, unfortunately. But in 2.7, the particle system is like all over the place in Blender, right? Like scattered all around. In 2.8, what it's being worked on is a sort of like a layer between the particle system and Blender itself. So that way, at the beginning, nothing is going to change. The particle system will still be the same as previous because it's a lot of work to make a new one. It's just too much work to do it at once. So this layer will be the one talking to Blender and to the particle system. So that way, in the future, when we have a new particle system, it can just plug in and keep talking to Blender the same way the old one does. So it's a sort of it's like building its connection, so you can plug in different particle systems, and that's amazing because that also means that maybe, who knows, there will be add-ons or other other particle systems that can.
It's kind of how the fluid system works, right? It's also kind of a bit separate.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, or like the render API, for example, that SoTalk render API. So it's like, F12 means the same in every render engine, right? Or like the polygons or like shaders or everything, just talks to it, and then, yeah, it's like a layer. Next question. Oh God, I love the diversity on the Blender crew. Yes, I think it's very diverse.
Yeah.
Two
Yeah.
Germans and
Yeah.
Argentina, Russian, Australia, Netherlands, Italy, Iceland, Netherlands, and that's it. No, yeah, Spain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Soon a lot more.
Soon it's gonna be Brazil.
Did we forget Russia?
No, I
No,
mentioned
oh,
Russia.
okay,
No,
yeah.
I mentioned Mother Russia first. And then soon it's going to be like everything like from Brazil to Belgium to
New
France,
Zealand, United
New
States.
Zealand, United States.
Yeah, more native speakers finally.
Yeah, we can finally learn how to speak.
How to
properly.
speak English? Yes. No. Okay. More. Can developers add improvements in the compositor like wrap? Composite. Are you gonna use the compositor in 2.8 in Spring, regardless the
yeah.
software?
Uh,
Do you think?
Sure, why not? Yeah. For maybe a bit like we used it for the agent, which wasn't to, assemble huge parts of shots together, but just, to combine passes, to do manual
Yeah.
denoising, color correction, and maybe, layering of smoke on top of each other. And
Yeah.
maybe if we have hugely complex backgrounds, we'll try to glue it together with the compositor. So
yeah,
yeah,
if
sure.
it takes too much. So when you press F12, you don't have to render everything, but maybe the background can be rendered in one pass, and
Yeah.
then yeah, I think in that case you're gonna need it. The same for like in the case of the agent, one shot that made use of it was the fire at the end. So that makes sense. So so you can re-render the fire
Oh,
and-
we also we denoised the entire agent by hand.
by
with
hand.
Blurring.
Yeah,
stuff.
because it was
God.
pre-denoise, right?
Yeah, but even then,
Yeah.
denoise existed, but we couldn't use it because it was blurring up the textures and the normals way too much. We
Yeah.
had all these details there, and they
Oh,
wouldn't
you
have.
could lose it. Yeah.
All of the stories I started to hear once I started working here, just destroying my
Yes.
image of the agent.
Oh.
You're gonna get there. Like at some
Yeah,
point,
yeah.
like we're going into shot production. It's gonna be this adventure of interesting stories.
Yes, and also masking, like making masks, because some part like some lights were turned off in some parts of the agent at the end. I remember some of the blue lights, so there was like masking, render only that part, and then just animate the mask. Is like you don't want to know.
All the render errors, and then you see that the character has the wrong animation
Yeah.
in like the first half because for some reason whatever, and then you have to fix that, and you just do it by manually compositing the character in like on a separate pass.
Yeah, or motion blur going crazy, and then you have to blur anyway.
Fun.
Fun. Next, how much time do you use for animating a scene? Number of animators and characters. No, I think it's how much time do you use for animating a scene? Number of animators and characters. I think it's one animator per shot always. They don't share.
Yeah.
We have two animators and they take care of the whole shot. Even if it's one character of 5, it's
Yeah.
one shot. Yeah.
Each-
per shot per character.
Each animator works on a shot. Our shots currently are from 2 seconds to 12, 15 probably.
Yeah.
So there'll be some shots where the animator has to work on it
Yeah.
for weeks and weeks. But I don't know the exact time for that. Like maybe
What's the goal? It was like 5 seconds per week or something like that, or more.
I don't know.
But yeah, it's pretty tough.
Good
Oh,
question.
towards the end of the project, it's like 30 seconds per week, which doesn't make any sense.
Yeah,
But that's the math.
insane.
Yeah. When I see a model sheet of the character, how can you calculate the distance between two circles of proportions?
Two circles of
Of
proportions.
proportions, yeah. So I think in the
I mean, the model sheets themselves are kind of this arbitrary thing because they aren't like the character didn't exist in 3 dimensions before.
Mhm.
It's left to the artist's imagination how she actually looks like in 3 dimensions and how she looks like from the side. So it's always a
Yeah,
certain
it's never exactly what's on the model sheet. There has to be some changes, some interpretation into 3D. The best example for Spring is like the head, just the size of the head and the hair, and also like especially your face. Just the head is actually much smaller in the actual model than in the sheet, and just the back of the head was gigantic in comparison to the 2D sheet, and I mean, the face had to also change a lot.
Have to be smaller, yeah.
Yeah.
This
We-
is like
we-
really, really old.
This is old, yeah.
Yeah, it's so old.
We had to go through a lot of iterations and a lot of back and forth with David as well,
Yeah.
just finding the perfect sweet spot on how to make this character design very appealing in
Yeah.
3D.
Otherwise, you end up with a big hands issue with Sindel.
Yeah.
Scales! Scales!
Yeah, or Victor and Cosmos Wondermat. He had these huge hands, and
Yes.
it was such a big problem for the animators.
It's a Blender Institute issue, I think. Spring looks amazing, yet similar to the standard character designs in the industry. Could you comment on this, and if you guys would aim for something radically different someday?
Well, it depends. What do you mean by radically different? Because I mean there is
Llamas, we tried that one.
Yeah, we tried llamas. We have animals. No, but I mean, we tried to do something like that for Elephant Stream, and people responded to how weird those
Yeah.
guys look like. And I think I don't think personally that the character design is very very industry generic or so.
Yeah.
It's certainly more catered towards a mainstream audience. That's true, because we want to make sure that people just like these characters immediately. And in 6.5 minutes, you have a hard time just getting selling the appeal of a character. That's really, really difficult. And unless there's something completely, I don't know, like abstract, like Luciano Lollipop Man or something like that,
Yeah.
like something that's totally just imagination, you're gonna have a
Or
hard time.
Dixie.
Yeah. he's very abstract and very appealing.
Yeah.
For human characters, that's really difficult, and then you have to make something really more simplified, which this is not.
Mhm.
It's
No.
not a simplified cartoony world.
Yeah, I think there are examples of radically different designs, but more in the sense that it goes way more into the cartoony, simplified aspects, but not much like into the really realistic
Yeah.
style. But
And also, like, making something like radically different, it's a lot of work, and I'm not smart enough to do that.
Also with the what always bugs me with really realistic characters, or when it gets, the more it goes realistic, the more you go into this uncanny valley.
Yeah.
And keeping it a bit more cartoony, a bit more unreal intentionally,
It's
it is much more easier on the eye.
Yeah.
wow.
The style, but the style is still very close to what we hope is a three-dimensional interpretation of how David's stuff could look like.
Yeah.
It's not really close to his style, because he would probably exaggerate it more and make it more anime, French anime sort of. But we're hoping that our interpretation kind of works best in 3D space from all angles and that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
So
someone was asking if it was anime or not.
yeah.
And I think it started a bit more like that, but now it's going away and it's into a more universal
Yeah.
language.
This is, for me, this isn't an anime film. I love anime films, but we're not Japanese. And
But you don't have to be
yeah,
Japanese to
and
make anime.
like, yeah, it's true, but anime,
Like
to be
you-
fair, it's just a
sorry.
name for animated movies from Japan. So we're making an animated movie. That's it. We're
Yeah.
making an animated film, and what people are gonna call it, I don't care.
Awesome. And the last question, I think it's, do you make everything up to scale? Do you make is the character 20 meters tall, or is it
No,
like
it has to be in the right scale.
it has to, everything?
Maybe not from the start. Like when you start out, I usually have just a sphere in my scene, and I just start doing stuff.
yeah.
But you get at a certain point also where you need to compare or like bring other stuff into the scene, and then it needs to be in the right scale. So
Otherwise, yeah.
Yeah.
And also because you're working with a team, right? So if you have your own scale and then someone else makes a watch for the character in a different scale, yeah, you gotta,
everything falls
Like what?
apart.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember like instances where I didn't pay close attention to the scale,
Yeah.
and then the character was just a few meters too tall.
Yeah.
And another artist already worked on the hair simulation, and it needed to be scaled down, and
Yeah.
nobody noticed. And okay, hair simulation work, the grooming, everything was lost, and he needed to start again. And he was angry.
Yeah. Yeah.
So always pay attention,
Especially
to-
for
yeah.
simulations.
Yeah,
That is,
when the modeling is done, the scales should be ready.
should be ready
right.
and applied.
Yeah.
Don't just scale in object mode and leave it like that. You need to apply it, and it needs to be 1, 1, 1.
Control A.
Yeah.
Control A, apply, yes, scale. Otherwise, yeah. You
The-
can.
The level of scale we always used was Blender unit to meter. So one Blender unit, one
1 meter.
thing is 1 meter.
Okay.
That's-
Which at the beginning looks a bit small.
Yeah, it's a bit
Yeah.
small.
You have to
You
zoom
get
in, the
used to
grid
it,
is
yeah.
huge.
Yeah, and it depends, of course, what kind of project you're working on. When you're working on something that's microscopic, of course, different rules apply. So you have to kind of see, but as long as it's consistent and you can navigate it in your scene well enough, then it's fine. We did realize that there are some issues with scale, especially in the rig precision, because we noticed that since we're using this Blender unit to meter scale, if we move Spring 300 meters away
Oh,
from the center of the set, the constraints in the rig lose precision because it's some floating point math thing or so.
oh yeah, because it was using single precision.
Yeah.
Because because memory issues back in the 90s almost, or something like that. Like when computers were not as powerful, I think it was like just to save some computing power and bytes, just made it single precision. So making that change is kind of a big deal because every blend file is affected by it.
Yeah. So that's also something that might factor into scales. So if your scene gets really big, different rules
Yeah.
apply also, but I
How-
can't know
yeah.
on the top of my head.
How do you solve that? You just made the set smaller?
Yeah, we'll just make it smaller. And I mean, right now we're prototyping things. So our characters might be here, and then we might be using the entire set, and we shoot one shot here and one shot here and one shot here or so, like over the course of the set.
Yeah.
Of course, later we're gonna split the individual shots into their own blend files, so we can recenter the scene
Oh, yeah.
and make sure that the character is always close to the center. But under 100 meters or so, or Blender units, it wasn't an issue really. So, but just to be sure, we'll recenter everything afterwards.
Yeah, just in case. Maybe 2.8 is a good time to do this change, or maybe it has to wait for 3.0, like, because it's something big, right? It affects every blend file on Earth, everything.
Yeah.
So yes, okay, that was the last question. There is a question that is a support actually, but it's gonna get a bit long if we try to explain it here without actually using Blender even. There are support channels in blender.org/support. But that is for Blender Cloud Live.
Awesome.
Thank you very much for coming, for spending your time here.
Thanks for hosting us.
Yeah,
no worries, no worries. This might be the last, my last Blender Cloud Live here, because next week we're actually moving already to a new place. Well, the Code Quest is gonna start the week after. So yeah, we might
Say goodbye to this beautiful glass wall.
Beautiful glass wall, but these videos are not going to stop, because thanks to your support and thumbs up and subscribing and everything, we see that actually making this kind of updates is fun for people to follow. It's also fun for the team to have history, right? To see like, okay, this is in 5 years, you see it like, oh, it's good that I cut my hair or something, you know, like, yeah. Or what we are doing the same way we did it in the previous projects would be nice. I heard there might be like weekly. I don't want to say anything, but I
We'll see how
heard
it goes.
promises. Yeah. So at least a video every few weeks on updates on the project that is going on here. Spring. You can check everything on Blender Cloud, and you can subscribe to this channel just to keep being updated with this kind of videos. That's it.
That's it?
That's it.
Yes. So.
Alright.
I'm gonna die before the live stream ends. That's it. Well, thank you everyone. Thank you guys for being here. And
Thank you.
We should be out in